It is like an hour before my flight. I'm in Edmonton. I'm leaving Edmonton, so the beginning of the story is the out of Edmonton. So here's the story. I was like 12 years old, and my mom had just separated from my dad. I was living in St. Albert. It was pretty crazy. There were a lot of issues in my family growing up, and my mom had taken a leap and left my dad. It was actually on my 12th birthday, so one of the main things that was really like so weird was, yeah, I was like this 12-year-old kid who has his birthday at the end of the month, the 29th of August, by the way. Yeah, and I wanted to celebrate my birthday, but my mom was also moving out of our house, the house I grew up in St. Albert. It was like a really high-end, middle-class, super family. My dad was always like interested in being a wiener. My dad wasn't very giving, so my mom was actually always like really adventurous, whereas my dad not so much. So this is back in like 1993 or 4 or something. 1993, whenever year it was. So I was turning 12 years old, and we moved into this like low-cost housing complex. At least my mom did. My brother and I like weren't the biggest fans initially. It was actually a space that I actually got into a lot of trouble in. But the cool story, and something that's actually sparked how it relates to this trip in particular, was my mom, while living in this like weird low-cost housing units in St. Albert, was offered a job she was never able, like a job she would never be able to take had she stayed with my dad, because my dad wasn't that adventurous, whereas my mom was. So my mom was the adventurous one, and she got this job offer in New York. And I remember I was like 12. I remember going to soccer and like telling all the kids that, like, oh my God, you guys, there's a good chance I'm moving to New York, because my mom was actually gone to do that. And now here's like even more some in-depth issues or some aspects about that trip to New York. So we were living, I was 12 years old. My brother, I think, was 17 at the time. His friends were visiting, and my mom had to take off to New York, so she left us. She left us at home. What happened was, she actually, so it was my brother who was 17, and she went to New York. And I just remember telling all my friends, like, you guys, there's a good chance I'm gonna be moving to New York. And it just sparked this thing. And like, if you guys wanna know the end of it is my mom never got that job. She didn't get the job, but she did spark a dream inside herself, by the way. After she got the job, or she didn't get the job, she came back and started looking for jobs around the world. And within a few months, actually, after living in that space for 1 year, within a year, my mom actually got a job. Actually, no, she didn't. She couldn't find a job. But she was still interested in traveling around and not sticking in Edmonton, just like I got this bug in me right now. What my mom did was she took me, the two of us, my mom and I both, moved to Europe. Yeah, my mom moved me to her mom in Europe, and I started going to school for grade 7 in this little teeny tiny town in Poland. It was called Zawichow. Now, this was like a time in my life where there was a lot of transitioning. Okay, I was just moving, going, and it seemed kind of dizzy. But what happened was, my mom actually left me in Europe and moved to Saudi Arabia. And then so the original plan, like when it first started, that moving bug, that traveling bug, was to go to New York though, and that was the original plan. And then I ended up living in Europe and then moving back to Canada and then getting a visa to move to Saudi Arabia. So my mom was the only woman, like, in the history of, at that point, that anyone had known about, that had like imported a Western woman to bring in her kid with no man. Yeah, I was in the capital of Saudi Arabia, and it was so crazy. I went to a school called Cesar, which was Saudi Arabian International School, Riyadh, and I got to meet. I just got to see a lot of the world, and it's something that started. I got a little bug that just got to move me, and it changed the world for me. And it actually started with New York. Hence, that's like the really cool thing that started all this. That bug didn't stop, by the way. We lived in Saudi. I got to move to New Mexico. I went to school in Wisconsin. I went to school in Poland, in Saudi Arabia. So I got to travel around so much as a young adolescent. But the dream to move to New York never died, by the way. want you guys to join me through this journey because it has to do with the dream. Now, what makes it so special that it's not just like some empty trip to New York. Number one, like personally, I've grown a company. I started a company that is called Kids for Cameras, and over the last 6 years, I've actually refined it, got a board, built a really cool system. I've collected a lot of cameras for young people over the last like 6 years, and I'm getting better at it. And this is why I'm going to New York. So Casey and I's status from New York, and he's been an inspirational vlogger for me. But what happened was specifically was he started 368 with Dan. At the same time, I started doing my daily lives. So this is a journey, and it's commenced, it's starting. And I'm gonna be going live in a bit because I got the Shaw Wi-Fi. Keep tuning in, you guys. We're gonna grow, and thebossvlogs.com is up. Let's go to New York.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Toronto. Local time here is 5:15 a.m. and arrival is approximately 40 minutes ahead of